to cash in on some of the really great interest in Django Unchained, we've got a series of action figures that are going to be released by this is the National Entertainment Collectibles Association. So there you see the different ones that we have. So both Brumhilda and obviously Django as well. So you get, you know, the big protagonists, I guess. Well, yeah, you can see there. So you can see Candy, you can see Steven. So both the good guys and the bad guys are represented here. 3 of each. I'd forgotten who Butch was, but yeah, he's one of the bad guys. And so a lot of people have a problem with this.
Yeah, and I understand. This is a very sensitive topic, but you know, when the movie first came out, people had a problem with the movie.
Yeah, before the movie came out.
Before the movie came out, and a lot of the people that had the problem with the movie hadn't seen it yet, specifically Spike Lee, who came out saying that this was disrespectful to his ancestors, that he was not going to be watching it. But my thing is, if you're going to make such a bold statement that it is disrespectful to your ancestors, then you should really watch it.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay for it if you don't feel like, or if you don't want to feel like you're funding it. You can get a screener. You're freaking Spike Lee.
Oh, I'm sure he gets screeners for everything.
He can get his hands on it and watch it, and then download it illegally, and then make, you know, more specific, substantive criticism of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just because we are talking about slavery, it does not mean it's automatically wrong.
Yeah.
And I've watched it, you've seen it too, right? And I think it was a very well done movie.
I loved it.
I personally don't have a problem with these dolls, but I understand people that do.
Yeah.
But I just think in context,
yeah,
it's all about context. They're not just selling a slave doll. They're selling Django. It's this heroic, really dynamic character, and I think in this context, these dolls are okay.
But let's give you just a couple of quotes of people who were actually offended by this. The first is from Naji Ali, the director of the LA Project of Islamic Hope. He says, "We were outraged. We feel it trivializes the horrors of slavery and what African Americans experienced." You can see there the doll outside of the box. Source, this is coming from WizNation.com. We also have another quote from the Reverend K.W. Toulos that says, "The movie is for adults, but these are action figures that appeal to children. We don't want other individuals to utilize them for their entertainment to make a mockery of slavery." And so Hermela and I and J.R. Jackson had a rousing debate about this a couple of hours ago, and he was very against it.
Yeah, and I will point out, love you, JR, but he hasn't seen the movie either.
Yeah, but he does say he's going to.
He does say he's going to. But, and I get it. I get the one point in that quote that I actually agree with is that it is kind of geared towards kids in the fact that it's a doll, right? It's supposed to be a collectible. It's something an adult can put up on the shelf, but it does appeal to kids. Kids don't know the history generally, or like, you know, they don't fully understand it. So I can understand that part. Yeah. But I just feel like this was coming. Of course they put out these dolls, everyone was going to be raging. They were raging because the N-word was used a lot before it even came out. You know, a lot. But in context, it makes sense. You know what I mean?
It was used in that time.
It was used in that time. That's how it was. And I don't think that this movie has really trivializes slavery at all. Of course, it's a fantasy, right? It's not real, but it is this revenge of the underdog. You know, the slave wins at the end of this movie, and that is not, you know, for a long time it wasn't the case in actual reality. Yeah. And, you know, I wish I could interview somebody who lived in that time. I bet you that they had these fantasies of overcoming their masters and saving their loved ones. And so why can't we make a movie about that? And I'm not going to go, you know, all out and defend the dolls, but I'm more on the side of why not? It doesn't change history. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't really hurt. I don't think it hurts anyone. I don't think it is doing any more damage. It's just something to signify an amazing movie, I think, and a well-done movie. I think the more conversation we can have about these really hard things in our past, the better. Why do we keep trying to shut down all of these conversations in the form of a movie or action figures? Yeah, I don't like it.
I would generally agree. JR did have some good points, I think. He said that his main thing was, this is a terrible situation, and he likened it to the Holocaust. And he said that we don't see action figures of people like being sent to the gas chamber or something like that, because that would trivialize what they went through. And I think that that is a good point. I don't know that I've seen, I don't know, Schindler's List action figures or anything like that. But I mean, I made a point. I don't think it's a particularly strong counterpoint, but I mean, Gladiator had action figures. That's of a guy who was taken into slavery and had a revenge fantasy and got revenge.
Right.
Obviously, that's, like Jared made the point, but that's a lot longer ago. Like, there were hundreds of years or thousands of years of slavery in many parts of the Mediterranean and Europe as well. But that is farther removed, and it's not of the American experience, which is a very good point. I don't know. I will say this one thing. They're called action figures in these articles, but I would make the case that these are not action figures, despite the fact that they're being made as a result of an action movie. These are 8-inch dolls, huge dolls, being made by a company that makes collectibles. I think these are for hardcore collectors and fans. These are not going to be sold in Target next to copies of, you know, Apples to Apples and stuff like that. And JR says that he does not want something like this to be used by a kid and have it trivialize what happens. And a kid, even if he sees the movie, he doesn't know the legacy of slavery. And I think that JR is right in that. If a kid gets a hold of these, that is a bad thing, I think.
But he does he does not know the context of them.
But he should. And
I
think
he's a kid. He probably shouldn't see
No, he should learn it eventually.
Of course, eventually he will learn it, but I don't think that is the dolls are going to keep him from doing that. And to JR's point, and I do sympathize with a lot of it, it's not like they have Django. What I hope when you take off the little dolls or the little doll's clothing, there's not like whiplashes on his back. That's too far. I mean, I hope not. To the point about, you know, they don't have, you know, Jews going to the gas chambers. Of course they don't. If they had a slave in chains, or if they had Django in the without a shirt with the whiplashes on his back and in chains, of course that is too far. But in this particular situation, it's this heroic character and very likable and interesting character that's being conveyed. It's not his, you know, weakest moments being whipped or hung by the foot or anything like that.
And to make a good point, we talked about this with JR, to the extent that the movie is comical or makes light of situations, it's not generally making light of situations in a way that denigrates the slaves.
Absolutely.
It's in a way that denigrates or like violently harms or kills white people in the movie. Like, those are the jokes. The jokes typically are not at the expense of slaves. Like, Quentin Tarantino loves to mix in weird humor. But yeah, I think that I think that Quentin Tarantino was trying to strike up a dialogue about this. I think that he was right. There's a reason that we're talking about it in the Young Turks multiple times now. I don't like that these dolls are taking away from some of the positive impact of that dialogue. And I would probably say that if I had been in the pitch meeting for these dolls, I'd probably say, that's kind of weird. Even if it's not offensive, and look, I'm a white person, I'm probably not going to be offended by it, but that doesn't mean that I discount the very real feelings that people who actually have family members who at one point were slaves. But it's still weird. I don't want to go into someone's house and see Django Unchained dolls. That's just weird.